Today we're going to cover some really important words and phrases for writing and speaking, 5 for each. These will increase your CLB marks to a very high level and make it really easy for you to communicate whatever you are saying. Now, before we get started, if you want access to HZad Education's free mock tests, completely free, as well as check out our free assessment where you will be assessed on all 4 modules, comment down below CELPIP. We'll contact you and give you instructions on how we can get started, and it's all free, plus it guarantees you understand your level and you get good practice before you have your exam. Now, when we get started with writing, a lot of times in task 1 and task 2, we have to say in conclusion, or this will lead to, or this will result in. And that's where people don't find good words or advanced phrases. Here's my suggestion for you. Use the words will culminate in. Now, if you're making suggestions, for example, in task 2, let's bring in this option because this will culminate in, and then whatever the result is. The result is always this will lead to or this will result in. But when you use advanced phrases or words like will culminate in, you get marks for advanced vocabulary, and we want those marks. The next thing you want to be able to use is to be precise, to be concise, to be specific. Now, if you don't know what these things mean, to be precise is to be more specific or to be more detailed or to be more exact. Concise is to summarize, and to be specific is not being general but pointing out the main points, the specific points of whatever you are talking about. Now, this is a wonderful start to a new sentence where you are expanding on what you were saying before. So let's say I'm complaining in task 1 and I'm writing to the landlord how the cleanliness is really bad in the apartment. Now the next sentence can be, to be specific, there are bed bugs in every bed in all the bedrooms. And you can continue building on that. This is a wonderful connector to use between sentences, and it is advanced. It is something that most people don't know how to use. So according to your situation, if you want to be precise, concise, or specific, use this phrase. It's highly useful. The next thing is, it is clear or it is obvious. Lately, while I'm giving feedback, and I'll tell you by the end of this video how you can guarantee that in my feedback you receive 9s and 10s or even higher, I'll tell you how our guarantee system works. But when I'm giving feedback right now to students who have never done CELPIP before, it's their first time, I'm always pointing out that you are overusing I. Don't say I all the time. It is an active voice sentence, and when you say I want to do this, I need to do this, or I think this is a good idea, you're overusing it, you're repeating it, and you're not showing the examiner a range of expressions, sentences, vocabulary. So now you got to add passive voice sentences, and people ask me how to do that. We're not going to make a lesson on that, but a simple or a simplification of passive voice sentences would be right here on your screen. It is clear or it is obvious. For example, if I want to say, I want to suggest that we should plant new trees in order to improve the greenery. Instead of me saying I can say it is clear that by planting trees, we will improve the greenery environment, etc. So here you are using it is clear, it is obvious, and those phrases help you make passive voice sentences automatically, which help you with your range and your marks. Next thing is, on top of that, or what's worse. Now, these are not just connectors. We have a lesson on connectors, which you can check out later. However, here we're using these to build on what we have said, whether it is something positive or negative. Here's what I mean. You explain something about your option in task 2. Let's say you selected option A and you say option A has this benefit. This is the first one. Now the next one is going to be on top of that, it also provides whatever. So that's your second benefit. And when you say on top of that, it is so appropriate to that tone because it's positive, and then you're piling on another positive. It is also a longer phrase, so it's not just a small phrase like also or plus. It is a long one, which gives a good range apart from other connectors. And it also gives you marks for flow and coherence because it's one thing you explained. Now on top of that, Mr. Examiner, there's this and so on. But what about when you want to be negative? Well, in that case, you should use what's worse. This usually happens in body 2 of task 2, where you're supposed to oppose the other side. So here you can say, have one negative, for example, and then the second negative before you say that, your connector is going to be, what's worse? this also leads to this, and this is the harmful effect. So here you can again pile on the negative stuff, and it's a great connector, suitable and appropriate to the tone, plus it's unique, which will give you more marks. The last thing in CELPIP writing, and then we'll jump to speaking, is using the word interestingly. Now, interestingly is a one-worded connector, and again, in this lesson, I'm showing you the ranges you can have. You can use the multiple words in a connector or just single-worded connectors, and you should use a combination, because the more combinations you have, it shows the examiner your range, your control, and your multiple expressions. Now, when you use this word, though, it is again different than other connectors because it is an adverb. It has "ly" in it. Whenever you have that, you have a bigger range. So, when should you use it? Honestly, every time. Look, if I want to talk about the weather today, it is hot. It's always hot in August, but I can say interestingly, it's hot. And that's correct. In winters, I'm going to say, interestingly, it's cold. Or interestingly, this suggestion works. Or in task 1, I can say, interestingly, I noticed the bed bugs here when I'm complaining. So anything can go with interestingly. Of course, it shouldn't be something very obvious, like interestingly, you drink water and you don't feel thirsty. Obviously not that. But something other than that, where you are just talking about a point you want to add, you can use the connector interestingly. It's very similar to just saying accordingly or likewise. And again, it's unique, plus gives you mark for adverbs. Now, again, before we jump on to CELPIP speaking, I have created this wonderful new channel called CELPIP Tips. Check it out. It includes even more tips on CELPIP. I'm going to link that in the comment section down below. I'm going to pin that comment. Here, I explain everything, all concepts of CELPIP within 4 minutes. Every video is just 4 minutes long with tons of content. So check that out. And now, moving back to CELPIP speaking. With that said, having said that, okay, this is something that you guys will thank me for so much, because in the CELPIP speaking, a major problem is you are thinking about the next thing you want to say. You're confused. You don't have the time to process your next point. And if you leave a big pause, you again start to get nervous because it's a big pause. Of course, it shouldn't be longer than 2 seconds. Now you will say, So now you have the filler, or you will say, to fill that time. And this is where things keep getting worse and worse. But what if you had long connectors? Let's say you say a few things, then you say, with that said, I want to, whatever. Or having said that, and then you continue the next thing. 3-worded connectors like these help you delay the next point, gives you enough pause in the middle, and now you can think while you're saying this connector. There's so much time that you can actually think about the next thing you're about to say. So using long-worded phrases are good because in speaking, they give you that buffer, that extra time to think, and it's not that long. It's just 3 words, so you never get penalized unless you make a whole sentence, which is a filler. Now, the next thing is you gotta. Now, this is for question 1 or other informal questions. Question number 5 and 6 or 8 even can become informal. Now, when you have these questions, you want to use informal wordings, and this is appropriate for the tone, for your task response. And again, if it is formal and you're using informal words, don't do that. Opposite, don't do that either. But in task 1, mostly it is informal, and you want to use words like wanna, gonna, and here I have you gotta. You gotta is basically you got to, but when native speakers speak, they just say you gotta. And this is not a grammar mistake. It's just a natural way of speaking. And when you speak like this, you again show that you are being informal, you're being appropriate to the situation. It is perfect for the tone that you're using in question 1, which is mostly informal, but at the same time, it shows realism. Most of you, what you do is in task 1, it becomes very robotic. Hey, my suggestion is you should do this, and so on. But in real life, you talk to our friends in an informal way. Hey, you gotta go to the gym and work out. It's just 5 minutes from your home. Now, if you insert these kinds of words, you gotta, you have to, you want to do this, you got to do this, it becomes really informal and realistic and natural, which adds marks and marks and marks. So make sure to use that not only in question 1, but wherever it gets informal. The next thing is moving on to the matter of. Once again, this is a long connector, giving you enough time to think and process what you have to say next. This is where you really get stuck. If you are confused between the next point and the first point that you're saying, and you really have no idea of what you have to say, this is a longer version of the previous ones that I was mentioning. Here you have almost like 2 seconds while you're saying this, and then you can think what you have to say next, moving on to the matter of whatever. Once again, guys, range in CELPIP is important, so you got to throw multiple ranges, multiple connectors at the examiner. A very long one like this, medium length like I showed you earlier, and then small connectors like furthermore, likewise, moreover, also accordingly. Use a combination to give yourselves marks for the range of expressions, sentences, words, and phrases. When we talk about parts 3 and 4, this is the picture question. Here, most of you ignore the use of adjectives, which are describing qualities. She looks beautiful, he looks terrified, the man looks frustrated. Now, I have done a lesson on that, and you should of course use adjectives, but it's important to also use adverbs before adjectives. And the three adverbs I want you guys to remember are extremely, really, and greatly. Whenever you have to express any extreme thing, you can use these. And in case of parts 3 and 4, let's say if a person is frustrated, you could use the words he or she is extremely frustrated. She is really frustrated. He is greatly frustrated. It doesn't have to be positive or negative. It can be both. And when you're using this combination of adverb plus an adjective, it gives you what? Again, the range. And you don't have to do this every time, but in parts 3 and 4, you guys are definitely ignoring adverbs and adjectives. So get this in there and get those marks. Now, the last thing is in part 7, it's a debate. I always tell people it's a debate. You cannot just say your points and be okay with it. You have to show passion. You have to show that you care about this topic, and using adjectives while doing the passion and all that exaggeration will help you with your range again. Using words like senseless, mind-blowing, and absurd are perfect for a debate type question like task 7. Here, you can explain your opinion and say that this idea would be mind-blowing for the masses if they do this. Again, it's a positive thing. And when you're criticizing the other idea, simply call it senseless. This whole claim about democracy destroying the world is senseless or is absurd. All right? Using these words give you a lot of exaggeration, give you that debate tone, and give you the adjectives that you need and mostly you don't use. Remember also in CELPIP speaking, when you're using all of these, don't just use them like robots. Make sure you put your expressions and interest into it and use good emphasis. And that's our 10th tip. Now, if you want to ensure you pass your exam for sure, guaranteed, we offer a money-back guarantee course. Check it out in the description. It's also linked in the shop link below. Once you take this course, you get all the tools, tips, and tricks, and mock tests you need, plus HZad Education's guided support, mostly by myself. And here's a good thing. We have now launched a 5-hour compressed version of this course, which means you have a 15-hour course plus you have a 5-hour course as well on top of this. If your exam is tomorrow or in a few hours, you can use the crash course and do it quick. You can also do the entire 20 hours. So now with this promotion, there's really no excuse for you to fail. You have to use this course before the exam if you want to ensure you don't pay $300 plus again and you don't rebook and lose motivation upon failure. CELPIP is a hard exam. Don't take your chances and take the discount that is available right now. Click on the link in the description and you'll be guided there. Please subscribe, like, and share. We'll talk soon.